What's up, singers, and welcome back to the Singer's Diary podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you don't know me yet, my name is Alyssa Harris. I'm a singer-songwriter, vocalist, performer, and I'm also a vocal coach. So I like to get on here and I like to talk about things that will help out my fellow singers. And I like to just talk about topics that really affect us. And today is going to be a really good one. We're going to jump into it. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I'm going to start posting a lot more. I'm growing my channel and I would really love everybody to join me. If you're a singer, if you're thinking about becoming a singer, you want to become a performer, this channel is going to have a lot of good gems. I'm going to be dropping a lot of things that may be able to help you. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Today, we're going to be talking about stressors at work, and we're going to be talking about how to eliminate work stress as a performer. Now, no matter what kind of job that you do, you're always going to encounter some level of stress at work. It's just inevitable. While, of course, some types of jobs are going to expose you to more stress than others, of course, it all affects us in some way. Now, as performers, we have what many consider to be a fun job. And many people think, okay, well, what could be stressful? What could possibly stress you out about your job? And it is a fun job, right? We're not working in the ER. We're not the CEO of, hundreds of employees or this huge company. What is it about our job and about our workload and about the work that we do that could possibly make us feel stressed? Well, on the surface, that's what it seems like, right? We show up to work, we get to perform, we get to make other people happy, we get to dance and sing and act and do all these great things that are fun and enjoyable and pleasurable. And all of these things are true. That is very true. But just like I always say, just like any job, it has its pros and cons. And one of the cons is that it can be stressful at times in its own way. Now, I wanted to make this video to identify some of the stresses that performers may face, and I wanted to point them out because hopefully this can help us to come to better solutions to eliminate stress in our workplace. And even though some of these might be unavoidable, they can be easier to navigate with a few simple tweaks, which is what I'm going to go over today. So I did a little bit of research about what some of the top stressors in the workplace are, and that's just general. That's just what I found on a Google search. I just wrote the workplace and I came to like pretty much the top five that I kept seeing over and over. And what I found was that almost all of these concerns and stressors, especially these top five, they translate really seamlessly into our jobs as performers. So what people deal with in general is something that we deal with in our workplace in general as well. So that just proves that no matter what you're doing, no matter what kind of job you have, there's always going to be obstacles, and they're pretty much universal no matter what work environment that you're in. So let's just get started. Stressor number one is a large workload or a busy schedule. Now, for us, that usually means maybe having a ton of material to learn, material to prepare. So that could be learning a big song catalog. If you have a contract coming up and you have a bunch of songs to learn, it could be spending hours upon hours in long rehearsals. If you're a performer, you know exactly what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. Those just days that are just long, those hours that get long. Learning a show, if you're a theater performer, that's practicing, for a performance you may have coming up, just hours of practice, hours of learning. I always find this to be a little bit tension inducing for me. When I have a lot to memorize, a lot to learn, a lot of material to retain, and I don't feel like I have like ample time in which to complete it, I start to get stressed. Okay, that's kind of a source of stress for me. The solution that I found to this is that it's easier for me to deal with large stresses, large amounts of work that cause me stress is to just be really impeccable with my time management. Now, I'll carve extra time into my day if I can. I'll try to break things down into smaller chunks of material and smaller chunks of work if I need to. I try not to get overwhelmed. Of course, it's easier said than done. But this is another area where self care comes into play, and it's super important. And I always talk about the importance of self care as performers. And I want to continue to do more videos about that because I find it so important. Getting good sleep is really important. Eating good food, taking care of your vocal health, your mental health, all of these things can help decrease the stress of having a heavy load of material to learn or heavy workload and make it a little bit easier to deal with. All right, so stressor number 2 is issues with management or coworkers. Now, this is a big one. It's a hard one. And this could mean dealing with very difficult band leaders, supervisors, coordinators, directors, etc. This could be micromanagement, excessive pressure, criticism, attitudes, negativity, dealing with that from people who are above you or people who you work with in any job, but especially with performers. Dealing with difficult people is always a challenge, but even more so when they're your boss and or persons that you need to impress or need to be on your best behavior for in the case of like a director or something like that. I've had a few run-ins with this in the past. It was very difficult for me. Let me know if you want story times about that, and I will post one. But it's a stressful element of any type of work environment is dealing with difficult people. It's really hard also as performers when there's that dichotomy between your job, which is so fun, it's happy, it's light, it's something that you love to do, it's your passion, it brings you so much joy, and then you almost have like this dark cloud in the back of your mind because you know that as soon as you walk through the door or when you step on stage or you get into whatever situation that you need to work in, whatever the case might be, you have that uncomfortable feeling because you know here comes that person, right? Or, you get knots in your stomach when you have to interact with that person in your cast or in your band or whatever it is. It's really hard to avoid drama and gossip in general in the workplace, but I think it's 10 times worse in a performer's environment. I don't know why that is. I don't know. Maybe we need to study that. And maybe I think everybody probably feels like that about their job. But the solution for this, it's tricky mostly because you don't want to mess up your bag, right? You don't want to mess up your opportunities or burn bridges or do anything that would put you in an uncomfortable position for, being able to book future work. But if your mental health is suffering and is something that's just really tough for you, it's important to find a balance as much as you can. In this case, the best solution that I would recommend is to just focus on the work. I used to have a coworker who we worked with a terrible, terrible music director. Mean, nasty, unfair, would say horrible things, completely unprofessional, right? Just disgruntled all the time. And that took a huge toll on me mentally, emotionally, professionally. But my coworker, I'll never forget, who was also a singer, used to say before every show, he would look at me and he would say, Alyssa, just focus on the work. Just focus on the gig. That's all he would say. He'd say, get your money and go home. That was his tagline. Get your money and go home. He was older and it was like almost like he was giving me some wisdom. And that's honestly, that's stuck with me ever since. The truth is, guys, we're not here to make friends. Not here to make friends. I'm not here to make friends. Like, this is work at the end of the day. And if we do make friends, oh my God, it's it's an added benefit. It's an amazing added benefit for us to walk away from our work situations with lifelong friends, which is something that has happened to me. I have so many amazing people, wouldn't trade them for the world, people that I've met uh, as a performer in my past bands or casts or places that I've performed, and I've just clicked with people because it was just a natural thing. But Sometimes that's just not going to happen. And sometimes you may even get the opposite end and you might actually work with horrible people. And if that's the case, and it's going to help you thrive more to just focus on your job and doing your job and leaving, getting in and getting out. Avoid socializing if that's what it comes down to. And that might just be the best way to cope. The other thing I'm going to say to that point is that it's really important that you are doing a 10 out of 10 amazing job, because someone can hate you for whatever reason they want, but at the end of the day, they can't deny you if whatever you're doing is your job. If you're doing your job 10 out of 10, excellent, with excellence, they don't have nothing else that they need to say to you. We're here for work. I'm here to do my job and leave. And if you've done your job, nothing more really needs to be said. People can try to be negative, be nasty, talk about you behind your back, but just don't engage. Don't engage. And that's honestly the best way to do it if you're dealing with a difficult manager or a difficult coworker. A lot of times it's temporary anyway, so that should give you some relief, is that you don't always have to be with the same people over and over again. You may not work with those people. You're not going to work with those people for 20 years in most cases, right? So a lot of times it's going to be a short-lived experience. So just do your best to be professional as possible and keep things surface level if that's what it comes down to. I recommend that performers, if you're in that type of a situation, just keep to yourself. Keeping things at a surface level with coworkers is necessary sometimes. And if things get really bad, I say tell someone, be that Karen, speak up, speak to the manager, go call corporate if that's what you have to do. Advocate for yourself. I understand that in a lot of cases as performers, we are 1099 employees, so we may not always have access to an HR situation where we can call HR and have a big meeting about it. But in those cases, just do your best to focus your mind, don't act on emotion, know yourself and move strategically. Keep it professional, get your money, get in there and get out and start working on your exit plan if that's what you have to do. All right, stressor number 3 is burnout or boredom, low morale, and monotony. Now, this happens, of course, when you do the same things over and over and you don't feel like you're really deriving any pleasure or enjoyment out of it anymore. This is another big one. A lot of us will deal with this at some point in our career as a performer. And on the outside, of course, it seems kind of like a good problem to have, right? I'm just so booked and so busy that I'm so tired of doing this show every single day. But it's like the fact that you get to do a show every single day is a huge blessing. And it definitely is. But it just becomes, I mean, anything, I think any job, no matter how exciting it is, can have mundane moments or it can become redundant. But you know what I'm going to say at the end of the day, that's work, right? Even the most exciting jobs probably get redundant after a while. And I will say that although I never actually get tired, I never get tired of singing, like the act of singing. I love to sing. Like I'll always enjoy it. I never actually get sick of it, but it's of course having to sing a particular song or to perform a particular show for multiple months or years, it can start to sometimes feel like Groundhog's Day, like over and over, the same thing, no change. And we know what happens when people start to get bored at work, especially in our workplace as performers. Things start falling through the cracks, right? Performances might become lackluster, and it can show in a person's face, in their body language, in their performance that they're bored. Just like the audience can always tell when we're having fun on stage and when we're interacting and we're enjoying ourselves, they can always tell when we're not as well. So, the best solution to combat this is to say, what I would say is to try and find ways to make things more fun for you while you're working and while you're performing. Just because you get bored doesn't mean that you're going to quit, right? You still have to do it. So you got to find a way to make things as interesting as possible in your show. So let's say you're tired of and you're sick of singing the same song over and over again, like for a wedding or something. I would say, go look up videos of that original artist singing that song and find out, observe them, reflect on what did they do in that performance that was exciting. What little fun inflictions did they do? What made their performance interesting? What's the actual song about, right? Think about the lyrics, think about the body language, think about the way that you perform it, and think about, is there another way that you could deliver the performance in a way that's more exciting or just different or more interesting? And if you have been doing the same thing for multiple months or multiple years, nobody's perfect. There's always something that we can improve on, right? So find ways that you can improve, find ways that you can nitpick your current performance and figure out things that could be better the next time you do it, and maybe try to do it differently. If you can change the material and you have the flexibility to be able to do that, like let's say it's your show and you want to add a couple new songs, you should do that. If you can change the material, if you can change the banter, if you could change the costumes, you could change what songs you do, you should do that. Deliver the line a little bit differently, play with it, find something unusual or interesting that you can focus on that could help break up the monotony in your workplace as a performer. All right, up next, we've got stressor number 4, which is lack of job security. Now, in this world that we live in, as far as career, literally no one is safe. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that we can go from being gainfully employed one day to having absolutely nothing going on the next day. And we all know that the arts is typically the first thing to get the boot, especially if there's not a proper budget to be funding everything. The arts is always the first thing to go. And on top of that, we've got a very strong cancel culture these days. So no matter how you feel about that, right, it makes it so that people could lose opportunities easily all the time, whether or not, it's warranted, right? And so, in general, since we tend to be contract workers as well as performers, we're more prone to working temporary jobs that only last a few days or a few weeks or a few months or month to month, right? There's also fierce and intense competition out there. So we know it's always kind of in the back of our mind that we could easily be replaced in a hot second if we slip up, because the job market it's narrow, or we just know that there's a lot of people out there that could take our place. If we should do something wrong, someone could come and do our job for us, right? And on top of how difficult it already is to be a performer, we also have to think about whether or not, our job is going to be safe. So it's tough. That's another stressful thing. Every job, again, these are a list of general things that, are stressors in the workplace. This is a big one for performers, for everyone, but for performers as well. It can be very, very stressful. The solution that I've found to this is that I think mostly is to just try to make yourself as valuable of an asset as you can. Try to be the best in what you do and try to expand your network so that you do have multiple opportunities. There's a large margin for you to be able to move to the next thing. If one thing should fall through, you'll be able to move on to the next thing with ease, and you'll have options, right? Remember that nothing lasts forever. Any job, even if you have the most stablest 9 to 5 that you could ever think of, the job market can be fickle. And so it's really, the onus is on us to make sure that you're keeping yourself as sharp as possible and as competitive as possible. So in case you do lose something for whatever reason, you'll be able to bounce back and have resilience quickly. Um, Remember that, again, nothing lasts forever. And even at the highest levels, right? Celebrities, huge music stars, they even have to worry about, are they going to still be making the same amount of money next year? Record sales and record labels and all those kinds of things. They have to worry about, is it my 15 seconds of fame? Is it up, right? Trends change, music changes, generations, come about, and you do have to be adaptable. You have to stay sharp, you have to stay present, and you have to stay on top of what it is that you do and make sure that your skills and your talents are going to be relevant no matter what the job market looks like. It's really in your best interest as a performer to try and make yourself stand out and so that you can move around freely and not put all of your eggs in one basket. And last but not least, we've got number 5, which is harassment or harsh criticism. I hate this one. I've experienced this one. I hate that I have firsthand experience with this one, but it's the world that we live in. Harassment, inappropriate behavior, or comments are a sad reality of the job. You may deal with unwanted touching, unwanted advances. Depending on the venue that you're performing in, you might deal with audiences that get particularly handsy or don't know, how to have boundaries. You may deal with stalking, or even with people that mean well, that, they don't mean to, cross boundaries, but they do it all the time. You might deal with internet bullying. Say you post performance content and you get a lot of nasty bullying or hate comments. People will also come up to you and say something rude right to your face. I think all the time about comedians and how they have to deal with people talking crap to them literally while they're on stage doing a performance. Like, can you imagine just like being on stage trying to give a show and you have a clown out there shouting, trying to compete with you, trying to, heckle and tell jokes? It's absolutely crazy and it's stressful. This is probably one of the stressors that we have the least control over, because we truly have no control over how other people act and what other people are going to do. We don't know, we have no say over the actions of others. And it's always easier said than done to say, oh, well, you just have to have a thick skin. You just have to ignore it. And I don't believe that you just have to ignore it, right? Like in any workplace, you shouldn't have to deal with bullying. You shouldn't have to deal with harassment. And so being a performer, you shouldn't have to deal with that either. That's no different. It's not okay, I think, because a lot of people feel like, you're on stage, you're giving them something. It's almost this idea of like, well, I own you, right? Like, make me laugh, entertain me. I've paid for this, so I can talk to you however I want. I can treat you however I want. And, to an extent, it's like we want to show respect for people and give them what they want and show them what they want, but we do have to have boundaries on our own, because a lot of people will just take, and they don't see you as a person. They see you kind of as a product or as a commodity, someone that is not a real person. It kind of reminds me of how you think of all that like internet bullying, cyberbullying and stuff like that, where it's like people are behind their computer saying things that they would never say to your face. But in general, sometimes you do get people that will say those things to your face and behind a computer, and it's kind of unsettling. It's not okay. And again, it's one of those things that we have to deal with, unfortunately. And having a thick skin and having a sticks and stones mentality is great when it comes to negativity. It's a great way to try to combat these things, but sometimes you're going to need a little bit more of that, more than that, especially when you're dealing with harassment, when something crosses over into making you uncomfortable. And it's tricky, but some of the only solutions to this that I could really think of, because I still deal with that, I struggle with it, is to set boundaries and ensure your own safety as much as possible. Of course, still be respectful, still be professional, because of course you feel like when people talk to you any kind of way or say things or do things, you feel like you can't say, you can't defend yourself in the way that you would want to, because you're like, okay, I'm representing this company, I'm working, but you have to advocate for yourself. That's one of the biggest things that I say all the time. Ask if the venue that you're performing at has extra security, if they could beef up security when you're there, if you're not feeling safe, if you could have someone escort you, if you could have, people just coming through and auditing and making sure that, people aren't being disrespectful. People are being, respectful of performers. If you're not feeling safe, try to go to a supervisor or go to a manager or a director. If you feel like you're at risk for having your privacy violated or yourself or your personal space violated, just try to think of it as protecting yourself. It's hard because we work for ourselves. So we have to be our own manager and our own boss and our own advocate a lot of the time. It's unfortunate, but just do your best to take measures to protect yourself as much as you can. When it comes to online things, become well acquainted with that block, that delete, that unfollow, that unfriend button if you need to. Okay? That's all we can do there. At the end of the day, we all deal with stressors. And even though it's very difficult to do, we should always do our best to try to eliminate potential sources of stress in our workplace and in our environment as performers. Stress can kill you. Did you know that? It's not worth dying over. Work, it's not supposed to be fun, but it's not supposed to be stressful either. We want to make sure that we're always being as calm, relaxed, and stress free as possible because that translates over. It translates as we transfer our energy into others, into audiences. We're supposed to be making them happy, not stressed, right? I hope that this was useful. I hope this was an insightful video for my performers out there. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope that you learned something as well. I hope that you can implement some of these solutions in your lifestyle, in your workplace. No matter what you do, actually, these things can be helpful, especially, of course, if you're a performer. So don't forget to like this video, leave me a comment if you have questions, leave that all below. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram, keep in touch, and I will talk to you all in the next video.